Hello there. My name's Mark, aka The Canardian. You're listening to episode 53 of the Holocron Chronicles. I'm joined, as always, by my trusty co-pilot, wingman, leader of the, I almost said hot snakes. Dragon snakes.
Dragon snakes. Hot pants. Hot pants on
Hot,
dragon snakes.
hot dragon snakes, the cobra chickens.
You can just call
Charlie
me.
Carden.
You just call me the Colonel. There you go. Flying our X-wings. Woo! You got
How are
it.
you doing tonight, man?
I'm good, and you're back after my little. Oh, he even paused to cough. Everybody, you're back after my little, Christmas message when I said that you had the Crimson Forever, and I'll bet nobody went back and read that terrible comic. You can find it on Marvel Unlimited if you're really interested. Star Wars, Volume 1 from 1977, issue number 50. I said that I did not read it because I think I read it when I was probably 8, and that's good enough for me personally.
I have not read that comic, but I did, after you mentioned it, I did look up the reference, and I'm happy to be almost feeling better. I saw my doctor today for the first time in person, which is weird for a doctor, but I have a slightly new, family doctor or whatever. And I, she transferred me into her patient list through the pandemic. So this was the first time. I've had a couple of phone conversations with her, but this is the first time in person. And luckily my lungs are clear. So whatever this respiratory thing has been, for anyone that heard me last week on co-op mode, you know that I sound a lot better. Even at the end of that episode, I was very, very rough. So I'm happy to be slowly progressing into something that sounds like a reasonable human being.
Getting out of the Tom Petty / Tom Waits kind of like rah, 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 kind of deal. Or, exactly. Dylan after the motorcycle accident.
What was that?
Bob Dylan after his motorcycle accident.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah. By the end of co-op mode, I did sound like I had gravel for breakfast with a few glass shards thrown in for good luck.
Crunchy.
And chased it with whiskey. It was great. We are this week without a guest.
Oh no! You got to listen to us two morons. Oxford and I do it all the time, but still, we end up babbling. But that's all him because I'm a man of few words and.
There we go. So this is going to be a slightly different episode. We'll hopefully go back to our regularly scheduled guests and all that kind of stuff next episode because the Bad Batch is dropping tomorrow, which
first
is
thing in the morning.
Exciting and amazing. And you're going to watch it first thing in the morning, I'm sure. I'm going to maybe try to watch it before work. We'll see how that works out for me. Usually when I say that, it doesn't work out. So I end up watching it after the munchkin goes to bed. And as Charlie just saw, it is like 2 hours past his bedtime and Finn is still awake.
Oh, but you know what? Just judging on my conversation with him, as it were, it could be a lot worse. As I recall from the days of long, long ago when that was my life, yes.
Yeah, he's pleasant, but still regretfully awake. So Bad Batch drops tomorrow. Where are your hype levels for this, Charlie?
Well, I have one question, which I'm sure could be resolved by looking it up. Are we getting the single episode tomorrow? Are we getting like 2 or 3, or is it just one drop? I suppose I should just look that up instead of making you have to do it like I don't know how to internet. But my hype levels are more driven by my partner Kay, or Katie, as you prefer, as she is sometimes known. She's the only person who I know who is a huge Bad Batch fan. So
1 and 2 are tomorrow. Sorry,
1 and 2. So it'll be like about 40, 45 minutes worth of watching. And it's tough because I got Oxtra in my other ear, so I won't be talking about this when we record SFU because I tried to do that with Lower Decks a couple of months ago, and because Todd dislikes it, I could get him to stop talking about how much he dislikes it. So we're not going to go there. But the Bad Batch for me, and again, we broke it down because we kind of broke it down live bi-weekly as the show was on, suffered from, I think, having too many episodes and not a tight enough storyline. And I would, and it's funny because on the other side of it, you see the Book of Boba Fett, which had a lot less episodes, yet still couldn't fill them up by having a story about Boba Fett. You had to bring in a ringer. It
Mhm.
was like, as I've mentioned, like the, Simpsons spinoff showcase where Chief Wiggum gets a show, but the Simpsons are in it, So yeah, this was the, yeah,
Yeah.
Boba Fett is essentially the Chief Wiggum of Star Wars spinoffs. But I think that, I like the Bad Batch concept. I like the characters. These are the highly specialized slash sort of mutated clones, and then you've got the pure female clone of Jango Fett, which would then make her Boba Fett's sister. And I'm curious to see where that journey goes, because like all things prequel related, like, well, why haven't we seen her before? Does that just mean that she's dead, or does that just mean that in this vast galaxy of 1,000 star systems, as Obi-Wan he mentioned it when they were flying back to Coruscant near the end of episode 3. He says, well, Palpatine can't control the thousands of star systems without the Senate. And when he says the
Mhm.
thousands of star systems, that means the people that are part of the Republic. What about all the places that aren't? It's kind of the same thing in Star Trek. There's the Federation, which is maybe 150 worlds, but it's covering the entirety of a quarter of the Milky Way galaxy. So there's so much more to be seen. And that's where anything, regardless of time period, I think can show us different corners. And Star Wars does a job, maybe not always the greatest job, but certainly a more than adequate job of patching together different components from here and from there, and doing real world building the way that, again, Star Trek has done forever, but Star Wars really didn't have to, because Star Wars for the very longest time was just the Skywalker saga. It was just,
Mhm.
we're going from point A to point B, and here's Darth Vader, and here's the Empire, and here's Luke and Han and Leia and the rebellion. And but now, post Disney, like it or lump it, they're growing, they're expanding, they're looking at different corners, they're taking on things we're seeing in 2023, such as the skeleton key, the skeleton crew,
Skeleton Crew.
skeleton crew with Jude Law, so kind of a younger, which a younger approach,
Mhm.
um, all over, and Ahsoka is carrying further the melding of kind of what we love about the Mandalorian and what we loved about Rebels. So it's growing. It can be clunky. It's never going to be spot on, but it's also going to be different things to different people, and that's why, bringing my point back to talking about Katie, my partner Kay over on Code 47, and then she's with us on SFU quite a bit. And she's been on this show. I get the feeling she'll be back on the show to talk about Bad Batch with us.
Absolutely.
To look at someone's passion for something that I know in her case it spun off of her love of the Clone Wars. A franchise has to be inclusive in so much that it has something for every taste, for every bracket. If it's truly going to, Todd and I, marveled last summer about how the hell did Top Gun Maverick, how did it get so big? How did it make $1 billion? And
Mhm.
Todd kept saying, well, it touched all the quadrants. And I said, okay, what are the quadrants? And we finally got down to the quadrants where men under 18, men over 18, women under 18, women over 18. Okay, those are the 4 quadrants, but it was like, you can kind of think about it any way you want, but anything that's a true success is going to accomplish it on multiple fields of battle, if you will.
Mhm.
If you look at media as a war, and different demographics as battlefronts, that's how you're going to be successful. So that's how Star Wars is going to win overall. They're going to speak to people of our ilk, people of my age. You're slightly younger than me, but you like some of the same stuff. But the prequels speak to you probably a little bit more than they do to me. And then the generation below you was Clone Wars, and then it was also obviously the sequel trilogy. So, and then looking at the different things we have coming up, it's speaking to, as I said, you're widening that lens, and you're going to make it less about late 40 something nerds who are living in their mom's basement and saying, well, my hero is not Luke Skywalker. Brr, 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 brr. You know what I mean? So you're going to find it all the way across. So yes, I am excited. I love to see what they do, just because I like the concept of it. And I want to see, again, how it shapes into the overall patchwork. Some of the video we've seen so far, we've seen that Palpatine will make an appearance, a shadowy appearance of some kind.
Mhm.
What are some of the other things we saw in the trailer? Now I'm drawing a blank. That's the big one that comes to
What
mind.
we've seen a couple of like Rex reaching out to them saying, you know, I want you guys to do a mission. We've seen um, Gunji, which my
Right,
hype levels went through the roof when I saw
your
my favorite
guy.
Wookiee
Yeah,
Jedi with one of my favorite all time lightsaber designs. So my excitement level is way through, and we see some other Wookiees. It looks like some maybe they might be going to Kashyyyk, and we might be finding out where Gunji's hiding or what's going on there. Or they might be doing a bit of Kashyyyk trying to liberate part of Kashyyyk or something like that before it's fully taken over, and then we know Han kind of
here
goes and
here comes
liberates it.
Life Day. It's going to be a Life Day. Yeah, that was one thing that if I remember correctly did happen following the end of the OT. Is that was one of Han's big missions as he did go and
Yep,
finally liberate Kashyyyk. So
correct.
yeah, it was just the Wookiee planet Kashyyyk was slave labor for the entirety time of the Empire. Now, was it? I'm trying to remember because I guess I don't know all the details. Was it slave labor on the planet? Like what was the industry they were farming, or were they moving them because they were moving to places like Kessel because you saw Wookiees
Yeah,
on
yeah.
Kessel in the spice mines at Kessel in Solo.
I think a little
Um,
bit of both. I think they were, using Kashyyyk for its resources and sending Wookiees out to different places. But I have to look that up for sure. But I think it was both. Um, so I'm excited for that. It also kind of looks like it might be a little bit mission of the week kind of stuff. So
okay,
where we could get a little bit of the empire growing and part of where this fits into the overarching story. But we could also do, I think of a show like Supernatural or something like that, where sometimes it was what I called a story show, which
sure,
you moved the narrative forward for the
right,
overarching kind of narrative of the show, of the family and what the mystery was. And then sometimes you just had a one-off episode that they were like, okay, here's a haunted house, we gotta go, let's take the
right.
Impala and kick some ghost ass, and it has nothing to do with anything, but it's entertaining. I love Supernatural,
Mhm,
so
right.
so that kind of thing works for me. And from all the trailers I've seen, whether it's running on the beach looking like a scene out of sci-fi Pirates of the Caribbean or something with like, we went over the mission a dozen times. It's like, I have the box, don't I? Like, stop complaining. They're being chased by giant crab monsters and whatever. Um,
Awesome.
it looks outlandish and fantastic, and my hype levels are pretty high for this show right now.
Yeah. I mean, Star Wars has always, I think of Avatar. Have you seen the new Avatar film?
I have not.
Yes. I mean, I think of Avatar and kind of the debate that Akshay and I had about it, plot versus story. And I was really locked down, like, well, the plot is so hackneyed and they're taking all these bits and pieces. And it really helped me look at it in a different way. And I almost think that this might be a way it could apply to thinking about this or even potentially the naysayers. I should turn this back on him and see what he has to say about that. I said, Todd, forget about the plot. Yes, the plot might be story of the week and they're going from A to B to C, but look at the story they're telling visually. They're on Kashyyyk or they're on Ilum or they're on Florum or one of these, far flung, beautiful, crazy, Star Wars worlds, and look at the beauty, and look at the beauty of how it's animated. Appreciate the story for what it's showing you. I bet he wouldn't like that argument. Anyway, very famously, Todd, who's our co-host and other in the third leg in the SFU tripod here, is a famous Star Wars. I don't want to say denier, but he's just very
Critic.
frequently. I would like Star Wars if. I would like Star Wars if.
Yeah.
Well, Star Wars is not that. It's not going to be that. It's going to be what's going to be. So yes,
Yeah, Todd does that with a few things. There's
yes.
I'd like this video game console if. Anyway, this isn't the let's bash Todd show. So let's
I know,
move
but
on
it's
to
worked out great so far, Todd. Peace with two fingers. We love you.
love you, Todd. But so let's move on to, I guess, the big topic and the last thing we're really going to talk about. This could be a quick episode. Tales of the Jedi. This kind of came and went during Andor, and
Yeah,
we didn't pause our Andor discussion because doing a show every 2 weeks we kind of have to focus things. And if we did Tales of the Jedi, I think that would have caused the episode with Andor to kind of be bloated, and you'd miss something. So we decided to save Tales of the Jedi for right now, which is great because we have this weird little time between Andor and Bad Batch, so it fits in perfectly. And we're not going to deep dive into each individual episode because I think that's been done over the
Yeah,
past
true,
month and a
true.
half, two
Well, yeah,
months,
it's
whatever
been
it is.
these came out just prior to Halloween, October 26th. It says right here, so that
Right,
is
right, yeah.
that's
So
that
a
is some
couple
time
months,
gone by. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly.
plus. But I did want to reach back and kind of look at this now that the series is over, and I know you had a chance to rewatch as well, right?
Yeah, I watched
Since
yesterday.
last
Yeah,
year.
with
Awesome.
the federal holiday, I had time to keep my ass parked in front of the TV because it was January 2, day after New Year. So,
Yes,
yes.
exactly. So I want to ask you what you thought of Tales of the Jedi overall, like your whole of the entire anthology that we got back in October.
With the exception of the first segment and really the last two, because you had segments 2, 3, and 4. And again, when we say segments, they're 20 minutes each in length. Anywhere between 17 and 22
Yeah,
minutes, something like that.
yeah, yeah.
You had a couple of standalones. The first
Mhm.
episode where you kind of get Ahsoka from cradle to in some ways grave, because again you see her just post uh, episode 3, and
Yeah.
you know everything that happened with her. Obviously, she and Rex were on that destroyer, and they had to kind of fight their way out, fake their own deaths so they could go off. But with the exception of that, and then one just prior to that, where it was her and Anakin doing a training exercise and lessons she learned from that, you get there's a certain broken narrative of lack of interconnectedness
Hmm.
for the whole narrative. But segments 2, 3, and 4 were all of the story about essentially Lord Tyrannus or Count Dooku during his time as a Jedi. So in segment 2, you saw him on a mission with Qui-Gon Jinn, where you start to see Dooku really take a kind of serious pivot and give it into his anger. They're there to retrieve a kidnapped senator's son. And when that goes afoul, and it's really seen that it's a double cross, Dooku chokes the guy with the Force. Super not cool.
Except
And
of course.
again, yeah, just and I think obviously oh no, this was, I'm sorry, this is the one where he was with Qui-Gon. So Qui-Gon,
Yes.
as a young
Young
man,
Qui-Gon. Yeah.
is watching this and being like, oh, that's not super cool. I was thinking of segment 3 is when he's
Yeah.
together with
Yes, we do.
with Windu, and again similar. And actually, in segment 3, when he's when the two of them, when Mace and then Dooku are together, it's kind of the same thing. It's a senator's guard and a corrupt senator trying to get them sucked into his dirty dealing, and Dooku's action with this get him passed over for a seat on the council over Mace, and because of his aggressiveness, and it just really further deepens the divide. And then wrapping things up, obviously in the first segment had to do with I don't want to do all the talking here, but taking concurrently with episode 1, Todd's favorite segment ever. Yaddle gets her time, gets her vote. Wasn't she voiced by Bryce Dallas Howard or someone somewhat famous?
Correct. Yes.
Yes, that's what I thought. You really get to see a kind of a satisfying conclusion to the Jedi Dooku storyline in this. So I was pretty excited about that middle chapter. Those I could watch time and time again and kind of pick them apart.
Mhm.
But it really almost seemed like this would have made a sense as kind of more of a volume 1 and volume 2, because
Mm.
the Ahsoka storyline and the Dooku storyline didn't really connect, and it
Right.
just kind of flowed in a way that they followed chronologically, because obviously Ahsoka was born, a bunch of time went by. You watch something that Dooku did over a period of 15 years, maybe.
Mm.
Then he was out of the story. Then we get obviously Ahsoka at the end of essentially the Clone Wars series, and her time with Anakin, one of the last times that she sees him. And again, before she, leaves the order altogether. Um, and then you see her, after the fact, you see her during kind of the new Empire period. What's the word I'm looking for? Your boy Cal Kestis, the Fallen Order, whatever. You know what I'm trying
Yes.
to say.
Yeah. No,
That time period.
the empire is established, I guess, whatever,
Yeah,
the
exactly.
fall of the republic.
Right, exactly. And that kind of interweaves with, there was a novel a number of years back. I read part of it and put it down, and I think April read the whole thing, and it was about Ahsoka. It almost seems like it was kind of interchangeable with what's described and what we see in the plot line of this, with Ahsoka being a farmer, and then something stumbles upon it. So this almost kind of felt like a retelling of that story. So yeah,
So
I don't know. Yeah, yeah,
that's where
and that's what it
some
says right here.
controversy came from. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the controversy with this, and I didn't read that novel, so I didn't realize, but reading that, there's some LGBTQIA plus representation that was just removed for
Oh,
seemingly no
from
reason
the book. Yeah, because yeah. Oh, okay.
from the book.
Okay.
We had characters Kaden and Miara, and so they were kind of like the sisters in this, and there's a lot of things that were similar or completely broke canon, but they kind of
Mm,
removed that character who started to fall for Ahsoka, and obviously that was kind of doomed from the get
right.
go. Um, but still removing that character was a weird and kind of unnecessary choice. A lot of people felt. Ashley Eckstein was asked about this, and she's contributed to like some Ahsoka novels and very familiar,
Mhm.
obviously, with the character.
Right.
Um, and she said she loved those characters, both of the sisters, and she thinks that this story could be kind of at the start of that, or live side by side with the book, which a lot of people think is kind of an answer that doesn't step on anyone's toes, and is kind of like a diplomatic answer of like, no, it kind of writes over all that stuff, and like Filoni just kind of brushed it aside, like, well, I didn't write that, so it doesn't matter, so I'm going to rewrite it and use some of it, and kind of
Yeah. I mean,
whatever. Um,
that I don't necessarily like that approach, because it's been
mhm.
Star Wars, as far as I understand it, their stance in the Disney era, that we have a
Mhm.
Lucasfilm continuity group. If you can follow the basic track, but there's all this other stuff that happens around it that's not ancillary. Um, which, as I've said before, Star Trek doesn't do. Though I read this really crappy clickbaity article today that's saying, well, the new comics are really trying to weave themselves in this and that. And I'm like, a lot of the new comics on the Star Trek side are trash, bad art, really sloppy storytelling, wrecking. You can't write new canon in just for a giggle. But it's a track for another time. But yeah, I don't really like that concept. But again, Filoni is, I hope he's not going to be regarded in kind of the way that I feel about Jim Cameron, that he's just kind of this
Mhm.
megalomaniac who he thinks he can do no wrong. He's done so much, and I've loved so much of what he really has accomplished. But I don't like. I've always really liked that about Star Wars, in that in this Disney era that we're in. That yes, there's enough canon that you can wrap your arms around, but we can keep some things separate. But if I read and loved that Ahsoka book, but I enjoyed it as a book. It's my mind. It's canon, but it happens within my mind, the same way that
Mhm.
any book does. You're imagining how things happen and what things look like, what things sound like, smell like. But then Filoni says, "Well, I got this different version of it, so I'm just going to jam it in there, and here's to your book. I don't care about your book." And I
Yeah.
think that that's not cool. But
Yeah.
yeah, as I was watching, I was like, I didn't end up reading that whole Ahsoka book. I know I kicked it over to April, but we're watching it together. She's like, "Yeah, it's pretty much this book, but it's not the same." And I just, yeah, I
Mhm.
don't, I don't necessarily think that really sits great with me. But overall, I really liked the Dooku arc, because again, they went back. They gave you a little bit more background. Certainly, the fourth segment, which happens concurrently with episode one, and then the death of Qui-Gon, and finally whatever it is that finally pushes Dooku over the edge. Um, I thought that was fascinating to see, and then to see Dooku take that last step by killing poor Yaddle in the dark. Well, I don't know if he chopped her in half and she was fish bait. I don't know. She's so little, but it was
Mhm.
sad. It was sad, and it was even to the end, she
Yeah.
believed in him. She reached out to him, but it was too late. It was it was the opposite of the way things went with Anakin when Luke saved Darth Vader. Where it was but the same as what had happened when Obi-Wan tried to save Anakin. So it was just not enough there to bring him back.
Yeah, I can't believe how much I really enjoyed the Dooku stuff.
Yeah.
Um, because he's like a fine character, he's a cool, badass actor that's playing this. So obviously, you're kind of
Right.
drawn into that. But a couple of things that I didn't realize about this was how recently in the prequels Dooku left the order. I,
Right.
for whatever reason, kind of assumed that he trained as a Padawan and then kind of took off. But this was like, it was really showing that it was when Qui-Gon died. Like, that's kind of when he really took a turn, and it was like, oh
Right.
shit, it was that recently.
The
Like,
big turn that
I
but obviously he had been doing some undercurrent stuff,
yeah.
and Palpatine had taken him on, I'm guessing,
Hmm.
when Maul was chopped into fish bait. That's
Yeah.
when he was like, oh, I'm getting the feeling this Dooku guy, like, I know him, and I think he'd be pretty easy to flip, because
Yeah.
the Jedi Council kind of sloughed him off because they think he's too violent, and they don't think that he's really got the true, he doesn't have the true sense of the spirit of being a Jedi, and so that made him vulnerable. It made him an easy target, and
Mhm.
look how that ended up working out for Dooku in the end. The scissors. Ouch.
So I was surprised by a few things of, like, seeing Dooku's side and kind of feeling for that character, and seeing a few things of just like, it wasn't a big turn. It was tiny little chips away at the armor. And you,
Right.
you can kind of get that. It was, letting a tiny bit of frustration out, or letting a little bit of, this kind of pride take over, or whatever it was. It was these tiny little chips that led to this complete abandonment. And also making us care about Yaddle. What the hell,
Right.
Star Wars? She has been
Yeah.
a joke character since 1996 or whenever we saw her the first time. It
99,
was just
or
kind of like
probably
99,
98, when
whatever.
you saw, oh, here's a figure of her sitting in a chair. You're like,
Right,
oh,
right, yeah,
she's just, and is she really Grogu's mother? You'll never know.
right. So
That's
it was
that's
it
what
was
they
so
want
surprising.
us to think, that Yoda's species is very monastic, and there's just not.
Yeah,
There's three of them, and now there's one of them. you
yeah,
know? Yeah.
and not only that, but she doesn't speak in weird backwards riddles. So that's like a
Right.
Yoda specific
Which means
weird thing.
Yoda might be, he might be aphasic. He might be mentally deranged in some variety, or maybe he's just fucking with us all. Why not?
Yeah, I read somewhere that he's doing that to honor his master or something like that. So
Ooh,
it
that could
might be
be
a
High
High
Republic kind of deal,
Republic
huh?
kind of
Yeah.
reference back there. But I also enjoyed the Ahsoka stuff, especially number one. Anytime, for me, this is a weird like Jedi trait that I love. Anytime a Jedi interacts with an animal and they have that connection with nature, I
Hmm.
really dig that for some reason. I enjoy that kind of, reaching out, and you and the animal kind of understand each other. So I enjoyed that, seeing even a baby Ahsoka just kind of say like, "Hey, Mister Saber-toothed tiger, crazy animal thing, um, you're okay. We're
Yeah.
gonna chill here for a minute." And that's it was I don't, for some reason that just kind of stuck out. That and Yaddle, for
Yeah.
me, definitely kind of stick out as like
Yeah.
high points in this thing. But the um I will echo your kind of statements that if Filoni's just going to change things because he didn't write them, it's like, I don't know, someone in Lucasfilm. I've been saying maybe Filoni should kind of like lead Lucasfilm, but if that's his attitude, like,
Yeah. Right.
no, we have to have some canon police that are like, no, here's what happened in the novel. The
Right.
novel's canon. Piss off
Right.
with
Exactly.
your cowboy hat. So
Yes, exactly. You and your cowboy hat can pick a direction in which to fuck off. Yeah, I don't
yeah,
really care for that. That's not
yeah,
that's not cool. If that's the over, and again, that seems like a pretty big exception to make. Who made the exception? They just say, well, he's the guy and we don't really want to mess with him.
Yeah.
That just seems very, I don't know. It's poor form, as they might say.
Yep. Yep,
So
exactly.
hopefully it won't be something that will endure and we'll continue to see. So we'll see. Yeah, we'll
I
see how that shakes out.
Yeah, I did. I was surprised with how dark they went with the Anakin training Ahsoka bit, but also how that tied into her surviving Order 66. So Anakin
Right,
pushing her that hard,
right.
um,
Because
led her to survive, but I think also kind of led her out of the Order a little bit. Like that was kind of that last straw, but also helped her survive kind of thing. So it was like,
right. So,
the double-edged sword of like,
well, I
all
mean,
right, Anakin's
it's
gone a little too far, but also this is why I'm alive.
right. Yeah, and it's hardly a philosophical debate because what's more important, your principles or being alive?
Right.
As it relates to this situation, obviously there are other times when self-sacrifice makes sense for the greater good, but there was no greater good when she was being, hunted by a bunch of, switch flipped clones.
Mhm.
It gave her the ability to survive, and so and pushing her out of the order, that's also what saved her life, just
Yeah.
barely.
Yeah, really.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah. So yeah, it's kind of like I don't know if this was just Anakin being an asshole or did he have some sort of vision and he was still Anakin enough to want to train Ahsoka, and he knew he had to push her because Anakin's had visions. We've
right,
seen that. He's had a ton of visions from the time he was a kid in Episode One straight up till the end. He saw Padme dying, and the visions come true. So, did he have a vision about Ahsoka? Is this the reason he was being such an asshole and pushing her that hard that he knew he
right,
had to do this in order specifically in that roundabout kind of thing? You need to be able to survive them shooting you from every angle.
right.
It's like, did
Wild.
was this still Anakin? Because he's at this point he's moving into Vader. He's
Well,
not quite there, but I
I
think
mean, in that
there's some
segment, that
Vader
was, I mean, that's when
seeds
she was still
for
part of the order,
sure
so it
at
was
this point in
far,
time.
far enough before the end of the series. But yeah, the question is, when does he tilt over the edge? Was it on the planet with the father, the son, and the daughter? That whole experience of that kind of
Mm,
push him in the, yeah, you're right. I suppose there probably would be a study or a school of thought of when did he tilt over the scales that he was on the other side.
mhm.
Um, but yeah, why would he bother to save her? Well, why would he bother, really? I don't know. Or was it really when Ahsoka left the order, that's what broke him and that's what turned him away? That's one school of thought, I
Well,
would
if you
think.
look at again, if you look at what Tales of the Jedi is showing us as a whole, it's
Hmm.
here's how Dooku fell, and I just mentioned
Right.
it's chipping away slowly at that armor. So if you look at Anakin as the same kind of, it's slowly chipping away as it was Anakin. Was it when he was taken from his mother? Is it when his
Hmm.
mother died? Is it
Hmm.
when Qui-Gon died? What
Right.
part of this? When did he start becoming Anakin, or stop becoming Anakin, or start becoming Vader? Slowly, and
Right.
this little tiny seed that maybe was always in there starts growing and growing and growing and growing, and at some point he kills Anakin, and it's just Vader,
Right.
as he told Ben. So I think there's no matter where you look from pretty much Episode One on, there's always a tiny bit of Vader somewhere in there.
Hmm.
Um, so when he's training Ahsoka, there has to be a bit of Vader, but at this point, Anakin, I think, is still at the wheel. He's
Hmm.
he's still in control, and if whatever the reason for pushing her like this, I like to think that it's a vision and it's still him at the wheel, but he might even see himself as Vader at that
Hmm.
point. He might look into his future. He might have a vision of his future and say like, well, shit, I'm not going to be able to save her because I'm going to be hunting her at this point.
Right.
Like, does he even know that? Is he cognizant of that? Or does he just know that Ahsoka will be in trouble? You got this snap vision of like, all these troopers are shooting at Ahsoka. What's going on? I have to train this out of her right now
Hmm.
so she can
Hmm.
live through this. He
Yeah.
doesn't know exactly what's happening, but he at least saw that. And this is when he can save.
Hmm.
This isn't his mother. This isn't a vision about Padme that, he knows that Ahsoka can take care of herself and in this situation can fight her way out. So
Right.
kind of an interesting way to look at that. And especially when like you said, we get a bit of Ahsoka, and then the Dooku episodes when you see that chip away, does Anakin
Hmm.
realize he's being chipped away? So,
Right.
um, so there we go. I don't know if is there anything else that you wanted to talk about for season one, or do you want to like just kind of speculate on season two, or share your
I
dreams
mean,
for season two?
is this something that they're going to tilt around and have another season of it? I mean,
I hope
I
so.
guess I guess I was really just straight up thinking that these were little vignettes, and this was just like a little kind of get you in between. So,
Okay.
um, I,
So for season two, for me, I'm hoping
yeah,
it's completely different. I hope they focus on two or three more Jedi. So in this
right,
one, we really got Dooku and Ahsoka.
right,
If
right.
they did another one with, let's say, two more Jedi, who would you like to see?
Um, because again, we'd have to tilt it, and would it be kind of if it was within the same time frame? Um,
Mm,
We've seen so much Obi-Wan. We've seen maybe not so much of Mace. You know, we don't really know where he
ooh,
came
yeah,
from
that'd be a good one.
things
Yeah.
of that nature. Master Mundi, Master Plo,
Ooh, Plo Koon would be great too.
Kit Fisto, and the what's the deal with his race? I mean, he's at home underwater. You know, how did
Yeah.
that come into play?
I
What
was
about
thinking Kit Fisto and Quinlan Voss
oh
for
right?
me
Well, I
would be
how about
two, but Mace
addressing
Windu, I think,
yeah?
yeah, Jesus, that'd be
How
awesome.
about addressing the age-old question of why is it super cool that Jedi infants can be snatched up and taken away to the temple? How is that resolved? How did that come into play?
Right.
How is
Mm.
that made acceptable to do this?
Yeah,
Child
you want to go
soldiering.
way back. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'd be real curious to say, how did this tradition get set up, and how are people just like, well, okay, he's special, take him away to Hogwarts or whatever. I mean,
Right.
I'm kind of curious.
Yeah.
I would
Yeah.
really like to. I would be interested
It'd be
to
an
explore
interesting
a
focus.
little bit in the depth of kind of how that's supposed to work. I think that'd be kind of cool.
Yeah. I don't even know if that'd fit into like a tale of the Jedi. Maybe you could do a
Right,
one shot of like, like they
right,
find a kid and they're like, here's why we have to take this kid. Here's what happens.
right, right,
Um, yeah, that could be really interesting.
right.
Um,
I've always been curious.
I was thinking Kit Fisto and Quinlan Voss, but I'm gonna go with Voss and Mace Windu. I think after you
Yeah,
mentioned Mace, like that would be really really interesting. And
I
Quinlan
mean,
Voss is such a
Mace
cool
is
character
the
in Legends,
only
but
character or the only Jedi who had enough power to very nearly kill Palpatine, though, because even Yoda, and again, it's so many like, it's all about setting and circumstance and stuff, but Mace had him on the ropes, and
mm,
he would have killed him. Where
oh
Yoda
yeah,
never really had the upper hand. If you think about
true.
that fight, where
Yeah.
Mace, and again, in the first 5 seconds of that fight, Palpatine killed three other Jedi. One guy just by running him straight through, without even touching blades, and then Mace kept that fight going for 10 minutes and was about to finish it off. So Mace
Mhm.
is incalculably powerful, even though people say, "Well, Yoda was the top guy because he was the Grand Poobah in the Jedi Council." But I tend to think Mace is more powerful than a 2 foot tall Muppet. That's my thanks for coming to my TED Talk.
I think especially comparative time. If we're both of them at their prime, I don't
Yes,
know.
fair.
Yoda might take it.
You're
Like
right.
I'm thinking High Republic Yoda with his, he's rocking with the dreads and he's
With
already
his
a
sexy
legend at
hair.
that point. Kind of, he's
Right.
and he, so that Yoda I'd like to see up against a full powered Mace. That would be interesting. But at this point, Yoda's damn near close to 900, eight hundred and
Right.
fifty years old, 840 years old, whatever he is.
Right.
Um, so I think that might play into a little bit. I'd like to see that flare out.
I
That'd be
did
interesting.
call Yoda in his prime, particularly thinking of that first issue of the High Republic comic. I called him the Danny Zuko Yoda, like from Greece. Oh, Sandy.
Yes,
Yes, there you go.
I like it. I like it. And we could even, I mean, a Tales of the Jedi Yoda. I mean, we don't
Yeah.
like, and
Right.
especially something going back, maybe even between High Republic and, the episode
Right.
one kind of thing, like that Yoda, this Yoda at his prime, um, or something like that, just to show off some Yoda skills. I think it'd be cool.
Yoda
Um,
it up.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear what people think. So if you're listening to this and you have an idea for Tales of the Jedi
Yeah.
season
Oh, yeah.
two, Let us know. Share on Twitter or on Discord or whatever. I'd love a conversation about this on our Discord channel.
Most def.
Speaking of which, Charlie, if there's nothing else to talk about, I guess we could wrap up now and you can tell people where they can find us.
I guess, you said it right there. Discord is great for people, for anyone really who is interested in conversations about Star Wars, Star Trek, comics, video games, movies, TV. That's all we talk about. You can find our Discord server in the links of this very fine podcast. We are also over on Twitter, where you can find Secret Friends itself at Secret Friends U. For myself personally, I'm can be found just about everywhere at the C3, TikTok, Twitter. Stay away from Facebook largely. They burned me once. Don't want to let them burn me again. On the other side of the fence, my wife April and I do run the USS Grand Petoskey, one of the biggest chapters of the Star Trek International Fan Club in the world. I also run the Region 13, which covers Michigan and Eastern Canada. So, Mark, any Trekkers, you better send them my way because I can hook them up.
You know it.
But that's where you can find me. Mark, what about you when you're not busy hacking and coughing? What are you up to there?
When I'm feeling up to it, you can find me pretty much everywhere at _Canardian. Aside from Hive, where I'm just Canardian because they don't do the whole underscore thing over there.
Crazy.
So if you're over on Hive, Star Wars Hive is back up and running. So find me at Canardian, or as always, like Charlie said, hanging out in the Discord channel. So Find us there.
Yes. Awesome. Well, with that, friends, I'm going to say, as always, thank you for joining us. Sharing is caring, and keep on trucking.
May the force be with you. Rex, play us out. This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.